So today is the Malayalam New Year also, Vishu, and it's Hanuman Jayanti. Last week was Ramnavami, so we are obviously in our mythological progression now. Yeah. So let's talk about Hanuman a little bit. See, the first misconception about Hanuman is that he is a monkey. They call him the monkey god of India. Now that is completely wrong. Hanuman is a different kind of being. They are called Vanaras. They are neither human nor animal. They are a different kind of being. That is because most people don't realize that the Ramayana does not talk about our dimension. It talks about quite a similar dimension elsewhere. And there are a lot of what are called supernatural beings in those. Supernatural or different from what we know on our earthly plane. So one of them were the Vanaras, and the Vanaras, if you look at the description in the Valmiki Ramayana, they are obviously much more advanced in technology and culture than the humans. They are much more powerful, they are much more. So this thing about Hanuman being a monkey and we won't do anything to cut down on the monkey menace because they are symbols of Hanuman. These are all mistaken notions of the culture because the Vanaras were obviously very peculiar in that they could assume whatever form they wanted. They were shapeshifters. They shared that with the Nagas. Again, Nagas are not beings from this dimension. Nagas are beings from another dimension. Some of them did come to this dimension and mate with the people, and so we have genetic descendants even today. That's another matter. So, first of all, the Vanaras are not monkeys. Hanuman is one of the greatest Vanaras. Multiple things about Hanuman. You see, we have these projections onto him. He is like a repository for all our social anxieties and our the the two things we know about him is that he's celibate and that he is Rama's servant. Yes, these are the two things always about Hanuman. That he is Rama's servant, he is the Dasa, and he is the. Now, yes, but there are reasons why these two things are. He is celibate because he has already evolved to such a state. He has evolved to such a level of vibration that if there is any kind of physical contact with him, the person will fry. So that is the reason why he is celibate. Celibate in his case means that there is no longer any need to seek immortality by reproducing, which is how most ordinary human beings seek immortality. They seek to ensure continuation of the genetic karma and the familial karma and the mental karma, and just basically that part of me will continue to stay alive. But after about 16 generations, there is absolutely nothing left anymore. Yeah, everything keeps. But Hanuman is immortal. He is what is known as he's an immortal. He is a Chiranjeevi. So what is the need to reproduce? Where is the need to seek this? But the deeper thing than his being Chiranjeevi or immortal is not that. The deeper thing is that he has already broken through to a level of vibration or to a level of potentiality where there is no way that a being, first of all, we must understand he is not a being from our dimension, he is a being from another dimension. So if he has any kind of physical relationship with a being from our dimension, they will fry. Secondly, he is going to be the first man, the Manu. When there is a new cycle of creation, Hanuman is going to be the first man. That is already in potential. That is already created. That aspect is very clear. So there are these multiple reasons, and of course in yoga they like Hanuman in that sense, because Hanuman is an example for celibacy. It's easy to sell if you become strong. There is actually a small connection between celibacy and physical fitness. At least those who are athletes know that if you have been sexually active, then the next day your legs are not so strong. So footballers and people like that, the day before an important match, they don't be physically intimate because your legs do become a little weaker. Now, modern science will not accept it, but all ask any professional athlete and they know it. So there is that kind of aspect. But the truth of the matter is, Hanuman is celibate because he cannot be in a relationship with anybody, given the current state of the way humans are. Next cycle of creation, when the vibration will be more and there will be, that time he will be the first man. He will be the first Manava. Now the second thing is that Hanuman is a servant of Rama. I actually, it's again a big blunder to say so, because Hanuman is much stronger than Rama, much more powerful than Rama. This sounds pretty shocking, but the truth of the matter is, from the time he comes into the Ramayana, he is the hero. Rama after that is basically in supporting cast. He does one or two extraordinary things, but basically all the main events are done by Hanuman. He's the guy who does all the work. He's the guy who's central. He's the protagonist. He's the narrator. He does all the heroic deeds. Whenever there is trouble, he pulls the irons out of the fire. And in a very simple fact of the matter is, Hanuman is, just in Shakti terms, much more powerful than Rama. In fact, there is a story which is not part of the main Ramayana, but there is a story that once the king of Kashi got on the bad side of Vishwamitra, who's very hot-tempered rishi. So Vishwamitra goes to Rama and tells him, this fellow, the Kashir Maharaja, has irritated me. I want you to kill him. And Kashi Maharaja very sensibly goes to Hanuman and gets Abhedana, the boon of protection from him. And so Hanuman has to fight Rama. And Rama, who has defeated everybody in the universe, he has absolutely no hope against Hanuman. Nothing whatsoever works against Hanuman. Because that is the level of Hanuman. If there is a powerful being in the universe, it is Hanuman. He is the most powerful being in the universe. But because he is also the most disciplined, there is no danger from that. I think probably because he saw how somebody like Ravana with all his power. Now another thing that people do not know is that Hanuman is actually an aspect of Shiva. He is a Rudra. He is that stormy, violent kind of form. So the manifestation of Hanuman always comes with lightning and stormy kind of thing. This, I'm not saying this. Vimalananda, who wrote the Aghora trilogy, he used to manifest Hanuman. He had the ability to do the avesham of Hanuman into himself, and he would use that to win arm wrestling, panja with younger people. Because there is nothing stronger than Hanuman. Also, the way that Hanuman energy is, it is not very conducive to the feminine vibration. If you look at the stories in the Ramayana, he's consistently beating down female demons, that the one that caught him tried to drag him and swallow him in the ocean, the Lanka Lakshmi. He's defeating that feminine vibration. So there is an aspect of hypermasculinity which does not require the feminine vibration, because that is how his evolution has been. So that is also the aspect of Hanuman being the point about Hanuman that we don't like to talk about, because those are two qualities that we don't have in India, is that fundamentally he is the epitome of strength, and then secondly he is the epitome of wisdom. Today there is a trend where they make these gigantic statues of Hanuman, these giant murtis, and it's become one of the commonest things where you have, and he always in a hypermuscular condition, like he's just worked out with 6 years of steroids on him, and so that That sense of strength is coming back, and his body is, Bajrangabali is actually Vajrangabali. It means that the body has become like the Vajra. The Vajra is the hardest substance known to the Indian culture. It is harder than the diamond. So the Anga means the body. The body has become like the Vajra, and Bali means strong, a strong person. So his strength and his body is like that. Now we have never been a culture, not at least for the last 700, 800 years, which has been very interested in physical strength. So this notion of if you engage with Hanuman, if you worship Hanuman, then automatically you have to develop your physical side of your nature. That is not there. So by making him subservient, by making him into Sri Ramadasa, we have just because he's that physical strength side, which is actually one of the big reasons why the Indian culture collapsed, or the Indian culture became so prone to invasions, because the physical side, the side of strength, the side of power started to be neglected. Now we still don't actually. Anytime somebody is developing themselves physically, there's such a lot of criticism that a spiritual person should not pay so much attention to the body. This is vanity. There is a whole there is a whole negative. This is being macho. There is a whole negative side to the development. So that is the one thing that we don't do with Hanuman. Though, like I said, given all these gigantic murtis that are being built, maybe that is changing. And it is now becoming very mandatory for men also to look hot. So maybe that also is changing. But the second thing is, Hanuman is an epitome of wisdom. One of his names is Buddhimatam Varishtam, which means the first amongst the intelligent, the best amongst the intelligent. He is actually a tremendously brainy and knowledgeable guy. In fact, when he first meets Rama, he disguises himself as a Brahmin and he comes and meets him. And one of the things that Rama says is, just from his speech, just from the quality of his speech, you know that this is an extremely educated and cultured human being, because he speaks sadhu, he speaks Sanskrit. Even the word Sanskrit actually means culture, it means civilized. So he's a very Sanskrita person. His bhasha is very sadhu. So the he is also supposed to be the greatest scholar in the culture. He has the knowledge of all the scriptures. He has the knowledge of all the greater than Ravana, greater than Rama, greater than Yudhishthira. He is supposed to be the greatest scholar of the culture. He is supposed to be the most intelligent, the wisest person in the culture. Now again, because of bhakti, we have run down the aspect of intelligence and knowledge. There are many, many organizations, supposedly spiritual organizations, where they don't allow, they don't encourage in any sense scriptural knowledge. They don't encourage in any sense knowledge of the sacred books or the sacred texts. Now there are reasons why, because if people start doing that, then they start faking it. They're pretending that what they have read in the books is something they have personally experienced. But on the other hand, to completely run down, there are too many organizations where everything is about bhakti and nothing is about the development of the buddhi, because there is a problem there. If you develop your buddhi, you start asking questions. If you start asking questions, then hierarchy starts shaking loose, and control starts shaking loose. And while I am always a person who likes knowledge, but I can understand there is a point where the knowledge becomes its own, what do you call, reason. And you meet those kind of people, they don't want to grow, they just want to question, and it's very irritating. So I guess these organizations and these teachers, they shut down that intellectual side, because the otherwise a lot of time is wasted in answering questions to people who have no inclination and no intention of spiritually transforming. Now, 1 year I've been answering one young person on Facebook. He is an utter living guy, though he keeps. So I keep answering his questions and answering his questions and answering his questions. And then finally I told him, no more questions to be answered. Because you're not growing. If you were growing in your sadhana, if you were practicing your sadhana, you would not be having these questions. So now the time has come when you need to. Even Buddha used to have the rule, I will answer all questions but only after you've been with me for 2 years. After 2 years, nobody had any questions. but, but the fact of the matter remains that Hanuman is actually a symbol of wisdom. Hanuman is a symbol of learning. Hanuman is a symbol of buddhi, which is like the highest quality for spirituality, that power of the mind, that power of the intellect, that power of the, it's not even the mind, it is not even manas, it is wisdom, it is operating from wisdom, which is buddhi. Buddhi means the person's mind has awakened, the intellect has awakened, and when you are completely awakened, you become a Buddha. The Buddha is a person whose buddhi is functioning 100%. So Hanuman is Buddhimatam Varishtam. He is the best amongst. Varisht means the best amongst, the highest, the best amongst the intelligent. And unfortunately, buddhi is not a socially rewarded quality today. An intellectual, we have a sneering term for it, buddhijeevi, the person who lives by the intellect. In popular culture, people who are very knowledgeable and intellectual, except for Frasier and maybe Big Bang Theory, the nerds and the intelligent and knowledgeable people are regarded as boring people. This is a tragedy. This is a complete tragedy. And people like Lindsay Lohan and Kim Kardashian, and these are the people who are celebrities. So stupidity is rewarded, buddhi is not rewarded. And all over the place it is true. The lowest common denominator is what is rewarded, not any kind of awareness of anything that is directly outside your immediate personal experience is regarded as being nerdy or regarded as being boring. And the dominant social patterns, they love that. They like the large masses of people to be stupid. They like the large masses of people to be ignorant. So, but that is not Hanuman. Hanuman is very clearly Buddhimatam Varishtam. And how we have taken what is like the most fearsome warrior and the most intelligent person known in our mythology and our culture, and we have transformed him into some kind of sentimental, always hugging Rama's feet kind of person, because we are afraid of intelligence and we are afraid of strength. Very clearly. And we are afraid of a person who is just so evolved. Because he is so obviously beyond anything that we can comprehend. Now, he is not worshipped so much, except nowadays on Saturday there is a worship Hanuman, because if you have Shani, Saturn in your horoscope, so now there is, so now he has become a Saturday special. Yeah. South India, there are some Anjaneya temples. In South India, they call him as Anjaneya. His mother was Anjali, so he's known as Anjaneya, and that is actually the way that women should approach him, because if they approach him in that maternal sense, then their sadhana goes very fast. It's tremendously easy. But if they try to approach the devta in any other form, then they are in trouble. So many yogis will tell you that you're not supposed to worship a Hanuman. Correct. You're not supposed to worship Hanuman the way you would worship Krishna or Rama or any other. You cannot have that kind of relationship. But if you have that sense of being the mother, then it's actually the fastest route. Women who can worship Hanuman as the Anjaneya, it's actually the fastest route. Now, I do not recommend that people start doing the Hanuman Chalisa, because you actually become very hard and tough if you start doing the Hanuman Chalisa. And though in most cases they recommend that, because again it is that astrological reason, there is some Shani dosh, and to activate that. But when it stops, they do not know, and they just start becoming flinty. Vajrangabali, they start, that Vajranga starts coming up. You start becoming very flinty, you start becoming very hard, very tough. So it's the Hanuman Chalisa is, well, undoubtedly very powerfully charged. Again, these things are not a blanket prescription. There are other things you can do for Shani. These things are not a blanket prescription. So Hanuman also is, in a sense, one responsibility that he has. This is not so well known, because he is the son of the wind god, or the air, or the pavan, the air, the prana. He is in charge of everything that moves, which is why he is in charge of vehicles. All vehicles are protected by Hanuman. So normally when you need something to protect your car, you need a Hanuman yantra. He's a guy who protects, because of that sense of movement and that sense of wisdom. So he won't allow you to go into any foolish place or any. So I find it very interesting that we have a devta, we have a vital being who can give us so much, and we have restricted him into this seva bhavna. We have restricted him into this. We have limited him, because if you engage with the devta, the qualities of the devta start flooding into you, and Hanuman makes you very, 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 very uncomfortable. Now, of course, if you don't want to be celibate, yes, there is that aspect, because yes, there is that aspect of not wanting to grow in that path. The path of relatedness is not there. It is a very independent path. So certainly the brahmachari types and the celibate types, Anjaneya is better for them. There is no doubt about that. But there are so many other things, you don't have to follow that, but you can learn the wisdom, you can learn the physical health, and what is it left to all these pehlwans, all the traditional wrestlers in the akhadas, they have they have a Hanuman. They have a Hanuman Murti. So again, that becomes like a socially unfashionable thing, because you don't want to be associated with those rough type, those uncouth fellows in langots, That is completely not Hanuman again. So, if you look at the stories, he had this tremendously grand sense of humor, and he was he was just such a sharp guy. He was just such a clever fellow, and he was just such a powerful fellow. That his sense of humor is awesome. Because Ravana sneers at him and says, "What, you are Rama? Look at me, look at my power, look at my glory." And he says, "Of course, you are like the full moon. Rama is only the new moon." And Ravana is feeling very happy with that. And his brother, who's very wise, Vibhishana, he tells him that's not a compliment. What he's saying is that the full moon declines, the new moon grows. He's saying your time is done. He was saying it in a very clever manner, because he knows that you are egoic, so you will think that is a compliment, but he actually just punctured you. So that is when Ravana again loses his temper and says, "Burn this fellow's tail." So that, and that whole notion of, they say that they tried to tie him and they could not tie him, because he was, that's a sense of his internal persona, his true self, his authentic self. His Swarupa is basically infinite. He is the only person, or he is the only being we know whose Swarupa is infinite. His personality is basically, there are no limitations to it, there are no boundaries to it, which again makes him very different from anything else on this plane of vibration. Because no matter how immense and great In the end, there is a finitude to it, there is a limit to it, and Hanuman has no limit. So that is, I suppose, there are good psychological reasons why we don't engage with him the way we do. But if we could understand this was such an extraordinary creation of the yogis, this is just such an extraordinary aspect of the, and at least the notion of developing oneself physically, the notion of developing oneself intellectually, because most spiritual practices you develop emotionally and you develop internally. You forget to develop these two things. You forget to develop. And there is nobody, there is no greater yogi than him, there is no greater scholar than him. There is just nobody who can compare. End of story. There is absolutely nobody who can compare to Hanuman. He is unique in the whole universe. And instead of trying to at least go somewhat along that road, we have reduced and limited him. Oh, he is the greatest servant of Sri Rama. No. What he was, because he was so wise, he saw that Rama is that avatar of Vishnu. What does Vishnu mean? Vishnu means that which pervades everything. What is which that pervades everything? Consciousness. So he has surrendered, he has done the process of Sharanagati. I have spoken on Sharanagati, where it is a process. Sharanagati, to come into Sharan, starts up the Gati, the flow, the process. He has surrendered to that, or he has come into that consciousness. He has come into the flow of that consciousness, of whom at that moment Rama was the best example. In that and only that sense, he can be regarded as, because I don't recall reading anywhere where Rama introduces Hanuman as a servant or his dasa or anything. So it is always better to acknowledge a superior, it is always better to surrender to something. Hanuman was smart, he surrendered to the most evolved consciousness on the planet at that time. But today he is much more evolved and he is immortal. So there are those other aspects to it. So that notion of him being a servant is not true. He is in Sharanagati. He has more Sharanagati than practically any other living being, than practically any other creature ever in the universe. It was when Sri Aurobindo first met the mother, he said what was unique about her was that she had surrendered to the force, to the higher consciousness, down to the cells of her body. Like most people can surrender from the mind and the emotion and the heart, not deeper than that. There is still resistance from the physical side, there is still resistance sometimes. He said, I've never seen this kind of surrender. She had just completely let the higher consciousness work through her to the levels of the cells in the body. And that is what made her unique. Hanuman is like that, or maybe even deeper than that. That is what it means by saying he is the greatest bhakta or whatever. He is not actually the greatest bhakta. Other people have been greater bhaktas. It is just that his sense of Sharanagati is so intense, is so immense. Nobody has ever matched that. And it's very unlikely that anybody will ever match it in future also. But we can learn from that too. But trying to create this Hanuman is the ideal servant. Why would you want a servant? There is something very dangerous in that whole, the Judge Bernard Shaw once very famously said that if you treat a servant as a human being, then you have taken away his reason to exist. Because the whole nature of being a servant, or the whole nature is that there is hierarchical difference, and that I am getting you to do some stuff that I could do by myself because it is more convenient, or if you don't do that for me, I cannot function. So, of course, since we love to surround ourselves with servants in India, the notion of spiritual discipline, and it's so easy, be like Hanuman, but no, be like Hanuman is very difficult, because that notion of Sharanagati is what matters. That notion of surrendering to that consciousness, that notion of being spiritual. There's even supposed to be a secret Ramayana which he wrote, and it is about 1,000 times more powerful than the one Valmiki wrote. But then he realized that Valmiki's Ramayana nobody would read, and he didn't want that to happen, so he basically took his Ramayana and put it into the ocean. Apparently, no idea. There is one day that Ramayana will surface. That's the notion of the matter. So he'll be around till the next cycle of creation. I think he's basically one of the overseers of human evolution. It's not happening very much, but that is one of his jobs. He's one of the overseers of human evolution. So this whole monkey god business, who is a, it's like he's a pet. He's like a very hyper able pet that Rama has, which I really get very angry. The monkey god who is Rama's servant. It's just like such an absurd and stupid and idiotic thing to say about Hanuman. Because Buddhimatam Varishtam is nobody's servant. So that is Hanuman. Plus there is that Shiva vibration. He is the Rudra. Rudra means the howler. It means the uncontrollable energy of Shiva. That's, so again, it's not any kind of subservience, because it is in Sharnagati to the all-pervasive consciousness. It is a blessing to the world. When he was a child, he was a nuisance to the world. He used to, and he was cursed with amnesia, because he was so powerful, and that basically he would do whatever he wanted, and no curse could, no curse could. So he had to be cursed with amnesia. That till you come to a sort of mature consciousness, you won't know your levels of ability. Today he has come to that mature levels of consciousness, and I think we should also come to a more mature level of understanding as to who Anjaneya is, rather than continue with this Ramadasa business. Yes? All right. Sarvam Shanti.